The Toyota GT86 is one of the world's favourite sports cars, and it won the 2013 Car of the Year award to prove it. Now here in Australia, the GT86 is sold in two models, the GT and the GTS. And the only way to tell the difference between the two is that the GTS has got the LED running lights here in front of the headlights instead of the xenon daytime running lights down the bottom there. As well as the GTS having more kit and a more aggressive body kit. However, both cars have got the exact same engine, drivetrain and transmission options, so they're pretty much the same car underneath. But before we get stuck into that, I have to show you what this car's like to live with, starting with the boot, which for a sports car is an alright size. It's about 218 litres. However, it does have this false floor in here, which you can get either a spare tyre or a first aid kit in there, and you also get the toolkit in there as well. Now, this is a 2+2 sports car or a 4-seat sports car. When it comes to carrying people back here, the situation's going to have to be pretty dire because I'm 6'3 3/4", and there's no way I can sit up straight in here, and that's in my driving position, so I've got pretty much almost nowhere to put my feet. My feet are actually stuck underneath the seat, but knee room's alright though. But yeah, I can't see people making frequent journeys in the back of this thing unless they're small kids. However, in the front it's not too bad. I can just about sit up straight, and the seating position, well, that's perfect because you can move the steering wheel in and out and up and down as much as you want, and the seat can go backwards and forwards as much as possible as well. But there's no center armrest there, so you can't rest your arm there as you're driving along. And it is also an automatic GT, but it's been fitted with these shift paddles on the steering wheel, and that makes it so much better to drive. It's also got all the connectivity that you could ever want. It's got the USB, auxiliary, Bluetooth, all the essentials. As soon as you start driving this car on the open road, you realise that all the controls, everything that you touch and feel has got this immediacy to them. Usually if you wanted maximum feel and feedback, you go for a non-power assisted system. But this is a power assisted system, and it really is the best of the bunch because it provides all the feel and feedback that you could ever want, and it's got this immediacy to it. The car reacts to every single one of your steering inputs straight away. There's pretty much no play in the system at all. And the throttle response is really sharp and snappy if you're driving in manual mode, but in drive mode then there's a little bit of a pause for when the car chooses the gear and then gets going. And the brakes are really good. The pedal's probably a little bit too firm, but there's plenty of feel, and the brakes never seem to fade. And the steering wheel doesn't have any buttons on it whatsoever, so you don't have to worry about hitting any buttons accidentally when you start to move the car around a little bit in the corners. And the car's got minimal body roll, and it's still got plenty of grip on those 205 section tyres. So even with all the systems off, you can still get this thing along a windy road really quickly without it stepping out. But if you do want to play around with it a little, then all you got to do is just put it into manual mode so you get that instant response and that maximum control. And then when you're coming into a corner, you can brake really late with this car because it only weighs about 1,200 kilos. And then just change down 1 too many gears, turn in late, give it the flick, brute the throttle, and it'll do exactly what you want it to do. The maximum power of 147 kilowatts occurs at 7,000 RPM, and it redlines at about 7,800, so it's quite a high revving engine. And the maximum torque of 205 Newton meters occurs at about 6,400 to 6,600 RPM. So whether you want to use the torque or the power, you're really going to have to work the engine to get there. And when it comes to refinement, obviously the faster you go, the more noise is going to come into the cabin. Now at freeway speeds, quite a bit does come in, but it's not too bad. You can still easily have a comfortable conversation with somebody else. And the visibility for a sports car is pretty good because all 3 mirrors are a decent size, and the glass goes back quite a long way. So when you're pulling out of intersections, you can look right back and easily see other cars coming. And then when it comes to fuel consumption, this thing will drink about 7.1 litres to the 100 kilometres combined. So that means on that 50 litre fuel tank, you'll get about 877 around about maximum fuel distance on a really good run. And if you're buying this car for sporting purposes, then you don't want to go for any other seat than these bucket seats because these are the best seats. They suit the car to a T. The seats hug you so well, they're not too hard and they allow a little bit of movement. And the number one thing I like about this car is the way it makes you feel when you're driving it, because it just feels so alive in everything you do. Now some people say it's like a well-trained guard dog to drive, meaning that it obeys your every single input absolutely perfectly. But I say it's better than that. I say it's like a well-tailored suit because it doesn't feel like you're driving the car. It feels like you're wearing the car because it just makes you feel so close to the car. It makes you feel like you're a part of the actual machine or the machine's a part of you, which is so hard to engineer into a car. So Toyota and Subaru have done a really good job with this. So the Toyota GT86 is my personal favourite sports car, simply because of the way you can play around with it when you're driving it and the way it makes you feel when you're behind the wheel. And that's not something that can be described by a set of numbers, so despite some of its closest rivals having better numbers on paper, this car is still the king when it comes to driver involvement. Now if you like this video or would like to see more of ThreadCar's videos, please feel free to subscribe to the ThreadCar YouTube channel, that way you'll get a notification each time we make a new video. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them in the comment section below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.